Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Bowditch, the gaps and misjudgments that you've described clearly did not provide the FBI its finest hour. But I do want to say that I think the clarity and candor of your recognition and acceptance of responsibility here and the quick response by Director Wray have been admirable, and I hope are some solace to people who've had concerns about what exactly transpired. We look forward to your report. What I would like to specifically request of you is a clearer exposition of the data cloud that comes in through your PAL line and through other sources that must be reconciled into investigative judgments. Senator Durbin referenced the 4,100 calls per day figure. You said that there's a certain amount of automatic sorting that takes place for frequent flyers who you've perhaps checked off as not being credible, so that sorts itself down. I don't have very many minutes with you here, but if there is some sort of a diagram that we could look at that shows what the background blizzard of information looks like, out of which you're expected to make determinations as to which data point is telling as to the prospect of a future crime, it would be helpful, I think, for us to see that. Do you have such a thing, and could you provide it?
I don't know that we have it, but I can find it and provide it. Yes, sir.
Great, thank you.
The other thing I would offer, Senator, to you and anyone else on this committee is we are more than happy to actually walk you through the call center at any point. If I could very quickly, this center was built in January of 2012, and it was built because we were trying to save the field work, so we were trying to centralize and standardize the tips and leads that came in and then went out. They have evolved that center, doing a good job. It's not perfect, obviously, and we made a serious mistake here. However, one of the things we have recently done to better develop that word cloud is we brought in the operator's side from both the Criminal Investigative Division and the Counterterrorism Division to have them look at the words and determine, with the emerging trends and threats, do they currently have the right words associated with that cloud?
I'd like to raise with you all a slightly different topic. One of the voices that has been most impressive and harrowing to me has been the voices of the trauma teams who've had to deal with the effects of the high-velocity ammunition that an AR-15 propels. I think it's still a little fresh to be reading through those details, particularly given some of the affected individuals who are here in the room, but I would like to ask unanimous consent that several articles, like What I Saw Treating the Victims from Parkland Should Change the Debate on Guns, Wounds from a Military-Style Rifle is a Ghastly Thing to See in the New York Times, After the Las Vegas Shooting Massacre, Survival Can Be Excruciating from the Washington Post, and Parkland, AR-15 Injuries Harder to Treat Than Handgun Wounds. I'd like to ask those articles to be made a matter of record in this proceeding, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. It does seem that the ammunition involved played a significant role in the casualty count in a lot of these recent shootings. I'm wondering first, Mrs. Althari, in your work, Dr. Althari, excuse me, in your work, do you take into account instrumentalities in evaluating risk, or are you looking more for high-risk actors?
In terms of the research that we've done, multiple variety of weapons were used. Firearms were the most common, but we've also had knives, explosives, vehicles. Obviously, that's kind of been in the news lately.
Does the category of ammunition that an AR-15 launches create a different level of safety risk than regular handgun ammunition in your estimation?
I cannot comment on that because that is not something that we came across in our research specifically.
Would you take a look at that question and see if your research would support an answer to that question?
I can look into that, sir, and see.
I would appreciate that. And to Mr. Bowditch and Mr. Brandon, any observations with respect to the added trauma, harm, and fatality from that specific type of ammunition compared to regular handgun ammunition?
Well, Senator, thank you for the question. Like I mentioned, I was a young person in the Marines, and I was trained on then the M16A1. The training I received was specifically as the lethality of that you could have a small projectile with traveling at a high rate of speed, causing major damage. And I do know from reading similar reports that yourselves and also the handgun ammunition traveling at much less. I think the .223 round goes about 3,300 feet per second.
Yep.
And so the article you referenced was just picture a boat going through the water, and there's all separation. That the projectile doesn't have to hit the tissue to do damage. And if it hits a certain organ, say like the liver, you know, you won't survive it. And whereas handgun ammunition, I've showed up on scenes, guys shot in the leg, you know, and waiting for EMTs. And I've also seen people shot with .223 rounds or 7.62 AK rounds, and they were screaming.
It's a qualitatively different injury.
Yeah, and again, this is science.
Yes. Thank you. My time has expired, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.